present our poster. Its title is Gelfand triples for Krohn-Nierenberg quantization on the homogeneous Lie group, and it's a joint work with Jens Wirth. So we work in the very nice setting where we have a homogeneous Lie group G, and one-dimensional center 1, and there exist some irreducible unitary representations that are square integrable modulo the center Z. And this enables us to, first of all, use Kirillov's correspondence between the unitary dual and coadjoint orbits, and it fits really well in this Petersen quantization procedure. And we get an isomorphism, a unitary isomorphism of the image of the group Fourier transform of the L2 space, and this tensor product of Hilbert spaces. So we have here an L2 space that represents, so to say, the measure space of the unitary dual, and this Q here is the homogeneous dimension of the group, and here we have just the Hilbert-Schmidt operators on the representation space to some irreducible square integrable representation pi. And this whole map also depends on pi. And if we now look at this commutative diagram, so we have here the group Fourier transform that maps L2 to its image, and we have here the unitary operator I talked about just now. And we may complete this diagram by introducing the sort of adjusted Fourier transform f pi. And now we have a Fourier image that is just a tensor product of a function space and an operator space. And this is a really nice environment to work with. But if we want to discuss test functions, in particular the function, the space of Schwarz functions on G, then we do not get such a nice decomposition into tensor factors, so of a function space and an operator space. So the idea was we just reduce the Schwarz space. We introduce the Schwarz space as star, which is basically in the center variable, it's orthogonal to all polynomials. And then we get an isomorphism of Gelfand triples. So here we have the Gelfand triples or triple of our adjusted Schwarz space and the L2 space, and this maps isomorphically into these spaces that are either function spaces, or tensor product with operator spaces, or distributions tensor product with operator spaces. And as in the talks before, this H infinity pi denotes the space of smooth operators to the representation, and this with the power minus infinity is the dual space. And in this environment, we can also talk about multiplication with vector valued or operator valued functions. And this is, we are able to do this because of the tensor product structure of our Fourier image. So the Fourier image was just defined to be this. And now we may multiply the functions and the distributions by such functions, and it is hypocontinuous and well-defined. And we can also do the same with the Krohn-Nierenberg quantization. If we just use this decomposition of the Krohn-Nierenberg quantization in the kernel map and this coordinate transformation and the group Fourier transformation, we can just exchange this by f pi, and we get again a Gelfand triple isomorphism of these functions or distribution spaces and these operator spaces. And in this environment, we are also able to recover formula for the symbol of the Krohn-Nierenberg operator that is well known for the compact group case. And this formula reads for any operator that maps the multiplication operators on G to either the multiplication operators or even Schwarz functions. We may just evaluate such a representation, rho, and multiply again with a unitary dual, and we get the Krohn-Nierenberg symbol. And this was a rather quick overview of our work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As it is a break, I think we can allow some questions.
Oh yeah, of course.
Maybe I will ask a question.
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, so if I understand well, one of the points in your presentation is the fact that instead of the Plancherel measure, you are working with concrete measures using a sort of parametrization,
yes,
which
that is right.
Comes out from the fact that you have a homogeneous group, isn't it?
Yes, yes, that's right.
Ah, okay.
Flat orbits also.
Yes, because in by more complicated techniques, I think that you could do this also for larger classes of groups, not even nilpotent. For example, there are, well, for nilpotent groups, you have the Pukansky and Moore-Wolf parametrization of the unitary dual. But you also have a more general one by Penny and Curry for certain classes of solvable groups, which are not even unimodular. And this also works to replace the Plancherel measure by a concrete one, somehow in terms of subsets of an Euclidean space and measures which have densities with respect to the Haar measure, to the, well, let's say, the Lebesgue measure.
Oh,
so that was a more or less a comment and not a question.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Thank you. So, but basically, we worked not only with the so we not only could sort of calculate the Plancherel measure explicitly, or we can do this via the homogeneous structure, but we also have a parametrization of the unitary duals, of the operators. And
yes. But
yes,
this can be done in a rather general framework.
Okay, yeah. Also,
but I think that
in
general, the formulas will be more complicated than yours. So starting from a certain point, somebody would look at the formulas and would start not to like them.
Okay, I can see that. Okay, but thank you.
Okay.
Marius, here it depends on the flat orbits, right? This nice formula depends on the fact that you have flat orbits in this case.
Yes, so because we have square integrable representations.
So if you go
flat quadrant orbits, yes, I agree.
If you go to higher generality, it will not look nice, even on homogeneous groups. If you don't assume flat orbits, it will be already not so.
No, I agree, but there is a way to do such things. Well, it depends on how exigent you are with the simplicity of the formulas. I can send you an article in which this is done for more general than exponential groups. So in particular, more general than nilpotent ones. The formulas are quite ugly, but at least they are concrete. So you don't just mention a Plancherel measure that exists by some spells, by some general reasons.
Okay, yes, this would be really interesting. So maybe I'll send you my email address, and this would be really nice.